Hey everybody, what's up? I am here with a very special guest tonight, my good friend Andy Pliskin. Andy and I became friends back in my early days of both of our early days of YouTube, and he got me back into Lost with season 3. As I caught up on seasons 1, 2, and into 3, Andy kind of kept me motivated. In season 4, I did Lost updates, and he took over for a week with me when I had a little hissy fit with a YouTube partner program issue. And with season 5, we did a collaboration just like this one, talking about being excited about season 5. And here we are, season 6. It's a testament to Lost and to the power of YouTube. How's it going, Andy?
It's going good. Lost hasn't driven me completely insane yet, so I'm chalking that up to a W.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, and neither of us have imploded like a hatch or anything.
Right.
So let's get into this. We've got a lot to talk about. Season 5 was amazing, and Season 6, final season, looks like it could be just as good. What were your initial thoughts going into this?
Oh, going into it. When I did the rewatch of season 5, I kept focusing on two things. First, the idea that there's fate and that the universe kind of fixes itself. So I figured even if they did detonate this hydrogen bomb, whether it worked or it didn't, that fate was still going to steer it wherever these people's timelines were supposed to go.
Right.
So I just was interested to see how that would play itself out.
Yeah, I really had no idea if Juliet was going to detonate this bomb.
Yeah.
If she did, because the big questions were, did she cause the incident? Did she stop the incident? There's been all these talks about what's done is done, dead is dead, but there's all this talk about, whatever happened, happened, but there's so much talk about fate and destiny, etc. And I think just my overall thoughts now of this season is there's going to be a lot of talk about fate, about people's destinies coming together. We took notes again, so we stay on track, and that kind of leads into our second thing, this idea of this alternate timeline.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how clear that was to everybody. I know I talked to my sister earlier, and she was completely confused, and I saw a lot of people confused on Twitter. What were you confused about what was happening?
Yeah, I went with the assumption that what was happening after the bomb detonated and it didn't work, I just assumed that was the real story, and that everything that was on the plane was like throwaway story, like a what if scenario. So my thinking was, who cares? Until I read some interviews that the writers gave where they both said, well, both timelines are real. One isn't more real than the other. One isn't fake and one isn't true. It's just two different paths they could have, that the exploding either happening or not happening could have created. And they said that they're going to run parallel for a while until they intersect up again later. So.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, one of the things I've been listening, some of the podcasts I listen to, and some of just the overall stuff even that the producers and the writers have said, is, seasons 1, 2, and most of 3, we had the flashbacks. Season 4, we had the flash forwards. This they're calling flash sideways.
Yeah.
So it's essentially an alternate timeline. And what people need to think about is that you had this one timeline going, and then in 1970 whatever, when Juliet, hit the bomb, that timeline broke into two pieces. And right now you have these two storylines happening. What you and I discussed a little bit pre-planning this. In my mind, look at it, there's a lot of talk about course correction. Faraday kept mentioning course correction. The universe will correct itself. And I think what we're going to see happening with these two alternative timelines, right now, even, the stuff of Jack on the plane, things are pretty much the same, but there's some differences. Right. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to see that storyline trying to get back to where it was. It's kind of like the analogy I use is a GPS.
Mm-hmm.
The first 5 seasons of the show, you follow the GPS and you went there. This season, it's as if you are listening to the GPS and then you hit a detour. And now the GPS is saying recalculating until it gets you there again. and it'll take you maybe a long way. And I have a feeling the two storylines are going to somehow come together.
Right.
I don't know how that's going to happen, if that's going to be another Flash or what, but right now I think this alternative timeline isn't necessarily a throwaway story. I thought it was going to be like a one thing, but it sounds like it's going to go for a good part of the season.
Right. Yeah, and I guess I was looking at the alternate timeline and seeing that there are some big differences as well as things being the same. I mean, Shannon's not on the plane. Jack's father's body isn't there, and at least the coffin was on the plane the first time around because we saw that on island. So if that wasn't on the plane, then things are a little bit different there too.
And I can accept that. I know some of the reasons Shannon, isn't on there is because of like scheduling conflicts.
Right.
But if you look at it, suddenly this island doesn't exist anymore, or it's underwater. By the way, how cool was that opening scene?
Yeah.
With the Dharma shark, and
Blew
then
my
you
mind.
see the foot. But in my mind, if the island isn't there, all the things that even caused the numbers to be in that hatch, and the numbers that affected Hurley, we don't know how, but we know
Right.
Hurley had the numbers with the good luck and all that. The numbers are even gone, essentially.
Yeah. Well, at least when they showed the pull down shot of the island underwater, they showed all of Dharma Village, the swing sets, the townhouses, and everything. They were still there, so it had to be above water at some point before it got sunk.
Right.
So at least Dharma was there for a good stretch of time before whatever, probably the nuke that Juliet blew up caused it to go underground.
Right, and I think though whatever happened to change things, it's enough to make ripples happen throughout. I remember when I was a kid reading the novelization of Back to the Future, and one of the things that always stuck with me is Doc Brown told Marty, was that his name? Michael J. Fox's character.
Marty McFly.
Don't do anything, because anything you do can affect history. He said if you buy something and suddenly you spend a nickel extra, you turn this person, the books of a store, maybe that nickel is enough to make them go and from going bankrupt to staying in business or vice versa. So with that thought, I can see how just this island being gone, when you see the forces that pushed everybody to get, the thing with Jacob touching, most everybody to get on the island, it makes sense that things are different, that, that Shannon isn't on the plane, that all these things aren't exactly the same because there was this big major thing that happened to all these, that would have affected these characters.
One of the biggest differences in this alternate timeline is, they haven't mentioned it yet on the show, but I'm sure they will, they announced it at Comic-Con, was that in this alternate timeline, Kate didn't kill her stepfather. She still rigged the house to explode or whatever, but it was her stepfather's friend who walked into the house and got blown up instead.
So then
they even had a big fake America's Most Wanted trailer about the fact that Kate was trying to kill her stepfather, but ended up killing a different person instead. So the ripples are even that far-reaching.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, when I watched the finale with the incident and the whole thing with Jacob probably 3 times. I rewatched it last week with the enhanced version. Jacob actually physically touched each of the Oceanic 6, well, Oceanic 5, not counting Aaron. He touched them with his hand. So he had a way of getting those people to come there. Now, how all these things are coming together, I don't know, but it shows you that, kind of to jump to the fate side of this discussion, people are still fated to meet. Look at Boone, Boone talking to Locke, oh, if I ever get on that island, I hope you're by my side. Look at Jack and Locke, are having this discussion. You still see their paths cross, and it's this idea that some things are destined to happen. So I have a feeling right now that the things need to work themselves out, and they'll get back together. I do want to mention some of the similarities of these timelines that I thought were cool. Charlie wakes up and he said, I'm supposed to be dead. Which we know he is dead.
Yeah.
Or the idea that when he used that pen to get the heroin out of Charlie's throat, in the original pilot episode, he used a pen, or actually Boone used a pen to do a tracheotomy on somebody. There's these subtle things that are happening. and I think we have to pay attention to those. And the cool thing is, you look at overall themes of the series. Okay, the theme of just a coffin, not so much a theme, but a prop. Now the
Yeah.
coffin's missing. It was empty when Jack saw it on the island. There's a coffin with a lock in it. They carry this box with the real lock in it that you see them dump out. There's these thematic things. Look at this thing with the case of knives that is now missing.
Yeah.
Remember when Richard Alpert visited a young Locke and he wanted him to pick a knife, and he didn't, or did he?
Oh, he wanted him to pick the compass, I think, and he
Picked the knife. So he wanted to be a warrior. So all these things just keep pointing like these things have to exist in somebody's life no matter what.
Yeah.
They're destined to be together. So did you catch any other differences or similarities, that were altered, that were noticeable to you?
I thought it was funny that Boone made the comment, "I'd stick with you." When he did that on the island, that's what got him killed.
Yeah. In the fact that Hurley, suddenly lucky is not alive. But because the numbers don't exist. The numbers are what made him unlucky. If the island is gone, the numbers aren't kind of there. I think that's part of it. And somebody pointed out, sorry to keep cutting you off.
Okay.
Somebody pointed out that Jack now was sitting in seat 24.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, he was in seat 23. Seat 23 is one of the numbers. Seat 24 isn't. So do the numbers not kind of this similarity of numbers not exist in this episode or in this alternate timeline?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest difference on the plane was the fact that Desmond was there.
Yes.
That kind of blew my mind a little bit.
I didn't expect that. Yeah.
Desmond's on the plane.
And think about this. Remember back in the end of season 1, Desmond met up with Jack. They were running laps up in some stadium or something.
Yeah.
And he says, "Meet you in another life, brother." And he said that time and time again, or "meet you in another lifetime." An alternate reality is as much of another lifetime as you can ask for.
Yeah,
How
no
cool
kidding.
is that? With that said, I need to talk, and this brings us to our next point. Locke, fake Locke, and the Smoke Monster. First of all, Locke in the alternate reality. Terry Quinn, is that his name? Terry O'Quinn, however you say it?
Terry O'Quinn, yeah.
Terry O'Quinn, what an amazing actor.
Oh my goodness, he's fantastic.
When you see Locke at the airport with the white button-up shirt in the wheelchair, you realize how much that character evolved up until the point where he was not Locke anymore. Up through literally the life and death of Jeremy Bentham when he died.
Yeah.
Now, so there's that part of him. But how cool was the whole thing with fake Locke in the temple, or not the temple, but in the four-toed statue, and the smoke monster and all that?
Yeah, that was incredible. I mean, just the fact that it seems like the guys who were supposedly working for Jacob walk in. He turns into the smoke monster, and these guys use the ash to surround themselves for protection, which is what was done with Jacob's cabin in season 3 and 4. So what does the smoke monster do? Knocks him out of that little circle of protection and then crushes him with a rock. And
what's interesting is I always assumed, because it's ash and smoke, that they were together.
Right, that they were one and the same, and they outlined the temple later in the second episode of the night. So it seems like that is a hedge of protection that the followers of Jacob can shield themselves with.
Do you think, are you comfortable with, a lot of people are saying the big question answered in this episode was that, what is the smoke monster? And the smoke monster, for those, again, this wasn't apparent to a few people I talked to. The smoke monster is the man in black. He was the guy wearing black and gray who was talking to Jacob at the beginning of the incident. He and Jacob have had this rivalry for, decades, centuries, whatever.
Yeah, because I think that was the Black Rock coming to the island. I mean, that's speculation on my part, but I think that's the ship they saw in the finale of season 5.
And I think, and I don't have any reason of knowing this, but I think Richard Alpert is going to be on that ship as a slave. And he gets saved by Jacob or something and somehow owes his servitude. Do you think, is it clear to you now, do you think Jacob is good and the dark man, by the way, anybody who reads The Stand, the main bad guy, Randall Flagg, is called the Dark Man, and now you have this man in black. Do you think
Hmm.
is he evil? Do you think the lines are still there between good and evil?
Yeah, I mean, more and more, it's seeming like Jacob is the good guy because he keeps healing people and blessing people. And every time he visited one of the members of the Oceanic Six or anybody off the island, it was in a pretty positive manner. Um, but yeah, it's he's everything that I've seen of Jacob seems to point toward the fact that he's the good guy, and nothing so far that we know definitively about the Men in Black says anything other than this is a dude who has no problem killing people.
Right. And what I like about the whole smoke monster thing, my concern with the John Locke story was that we were going to have 4 or 5 seasons of this guy who believed in the island and believed in everything he was doing. And then just to get killed by Ben and played the fool for no reason, this character needed some redemption.
Yeah.
But John Locke saw the smoke monster in one of the very first episodes. I think
Mhm.
maybe the walkabout episode. That smoke monster has cheated him and used him and manipulated him the entire series to get what he wants.
Right.
He ended up manipulating him to go against Ben and Ben to kill him. I'm convinced that, and I'm okay now as a viewer who
Mhm.
wanted to see the redemption of Locke. If anything, it just makes Locke all the more tragic. That doesn't mean
Right.
Locke won't be redeemed at the end somehow, maybe in that alternate timeline or something. I still wouldn't doubt if we see a resurrected Locke. I don't know. But I think if you look at the entire storyline of Locke listening to the island, he did listen to the island. And he was, what did the Dark Man say? That he was the only one who understood the island was better than their pathetic lives they
Yeah.
had. Um, I
And I
just
think
thought that
the
was amazing.
yeah, I think the it raises all sorts of questions about Ben, like the fact that Jacob ignored Ben for so long. It seems like has always been this guy who tries to play both sides against the middle.
Yeah.
And when he had problems with the people from the freighter, he calls the smoke monster to come help him. So he seems perfectly okay to invoke the smoke monster when it's convenient.
Mhm.
Um, it would make sense that that's the reason why there's so much separation from Jacob, because you can't do both. You're either Jacob's or you're the other guys. It
Yeah,
doesn't
and
seem-
he was definitely playing both sides.
yeah,
And I believe that probably if you look at all the pieces in the puzzle, that the smoke monster was using Ben to be the adversary to Locke.
oh
And
yeah,
then to end to use Ben to kill Locke, and then the beauty of that, the bookend or the symmetry, is that then Ben kills Locke, and because Locke is dead, then he has Ben kill the smoke monster or something like.
yeah, yeah. So if anybody's a pawn in this whole game, Ben is front and center.
Yeah.
He's the most manipulated person, even more so than Locke before his untimely death.
So now, do you think that we kind of saw Locke, fake Locke, said, I'm sorry you had to see me this way. I mean, that was just amazing. As the smoke
Oh,
monster. That pretty much, again, I had explained this to a few people, coworkers and stuff, whatever, that when Ben was being judged by the smoke monster, then his daughter Alex comes to see him. That was obviously the reincarnation of the smoke monster messing with people.
Right.
Do you think that all through the timeline of the island, like when we saw, Shannon like screaming and people having these visions, and at times there was like a black horse and all this like this weird supernatural stuff? Was
Yeah.
that all the smoke monster changing form? I think he's just a form or shapeshifter.
Right. It seems as though even when you see Christian Shepherd and all those guys on the island, it seems as though he could only appear to one person at a time, or just in very small intervals. He was never around for more than a couple minutes here or there.
Do you think that's an interesting point? Is the smoke monster Christian Shepherd?
Uh,
Is Christian good or bad?
I'm going to go ahead and say probably, because when you one of the times
Probably
they
what?
go up, he's probably bad.
Okay.
The Christian's probably the bad guy because Christian was in Jacob's cabin for a little bit and says, "Oh, I speak on behalf of Jacob, whatever." When the end of season 5 happens and the people who were also on the Ajira flight, the friends of Jacob, whatever, get to Jacob's cabin, they look around and say, "Somebody else has been using it." and then they burn to the ground.
Right.
It makes me think that it was the smoke monster, this man in black, that was doing it.
But it'd be interesting why he would manifest himself in the form of Christian Shepherd when that form means nothing to anybody else. Except
Maybe it's
Jack.
the presence of his corpse on the island. Somebody who had died off island. I don't know.
And then you have the presence of the John Locke corpse, and then he can take that form. Oh! Right. Oh! That's when he showed up. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay. Speaking
Write that
of
down.
reincarnation. Yes, smart. That's good. That's good. Okay, speaking of reincarnation, and we have to keep this moving.
Right.
The temple. They go visit the temple, which we heard about in season 3.
Yeah.
We know that little Ben, who was shot by Saeed, had to go there. So we see the outside of it. We see Richard Alpert taking him there. And he says he'll never be the same. First of all, how cool was it that now Saeed has to be taken to the very same temple that they had to bring Ben because he shot Ben. Again, one of these nice bookend type things, I think.
Yeah.
At the temple, you see Cindy show up. What's the proper term?
Stewardess? Flight attendant?
Flight attendant. Flight attendant shows up, where she was a big question mark for me. Like, where did she go? And then those two kids that serve the drinks, Zach and
Zach and Emma.
Emma, they were two of the children on the plane on 815. So to see them, they're the like original others, or at least Cindy was probably an original other, trying to maybe do Jacob's work. How cool was that, though, that Saeed was in there? In general, what are your thoughts of that whole temple thing? I'm going a mile a minute here.
Oh, goodness. The fact that the water they express is typically clear, but now that Jacob's dead, that it's brown, I think really kind of solidifies his supernatural, spiritual leader role amongst the others. But I don't even know what to say about it. The fact that they held Saeed underwater and they thought that would bring him back to life. And then it eventually did, but we don't even know in what capacity, whether he's now a puppet for the inhabitation of either Jacob or somebody else. It's a lot to take in.
Because didn't Jacob say, you need to, we need this, we need you to heal Saeed. We need Saeed to be better, or we need Saeed to go here.
Yeah, because if Saeed doesn't get better, then you're all in a lot of trouble. And he is better, but we get one sentence out of him, and then we have to wait until next week to find out.
A lot of people are thinking that he will be the embodiment of Jacob. I don't know if I follow that, if I believe that.
Quite ironic, considering how violent of a man Saeed is.
Right, but he could be, again, redeemed. Maybe all along we were looking at the redemption of John Locke. What did he need to be redeemed about? Yeah, he had a pathetic life.
Yeah.
But really, Saeed was the killer. So now, could he... I don't know. And I guess you need to figure out what way was Ben changed when he was somehow healed by Jacob, by that water, by whatever. Oh, and I have to point out that holy man, I don't know his name, the one who said, my favorite line of both nights was, I hate how English tastes on my tongue, or...
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just love that line. But I think that guy's going to be a major player. Is he one of the original others? What does that all have to do,
Yeah.
And how cool was we finally saw what was in the guitar case.
Yeah.
Kind of showing...
Giant Egyptian thing.
Yeah, and that thing that was a symbol of fertility. And the statue, the four-toed statue, it's a statue of fertility. It's a female statue of something or another. I don't know the full whatever, but it is something to do with fertility. So that all the research Juliet was doing and that storyline with the women not being able to have children, I think that will come into play too. Who knows? Maybe the Smoke Monster is just creating the fact that women can't have children.
Yeah, it could be the presence of the Smoke Monster. One of his spheres of influence is fertility in some capacity.
Yeah. So that was really cool. I think that was a cool way to... And then to open it up and say, okay, all along these people are necessary for this. And it still makes you wonder why. How could Jacob go back when Kate was a little girl, when Sawyer was a little boy? at pivotal points, Jack's time, whatever. I mean, that's the brilliance of all this, if they pull it together.
Yeah.
Gosh, we should almost wrap up here. There's a lot we didn't talk about um, with Sawyer and Juliet, and
Yeah.
so is there anything you want to touch on? We got a couple minutes yet.
Anything I wanted to say. I'm really curious to see Hurley in the new timeline, just to see how he's a different character from being plagued with self-doubt and guilt from the accident that he's caused a few years ago, and being cursed to being the luckiest man alive, just to see the two sides of him in the two different timelines. I'm really excited to see that.
Didn't he seem a little more forceful or heroic or like a leader or something in this episode?
Yeah, he was chipper and he's making business decisions about his restaurant.
No, I actually mean in the
Oh.
with Jacob in that storyline on the island. He seemed like he was a little bit more like he told Jack, well, what did you do to help him?
Right.
We need to save him. So I wonder if his character's not going to change somewhat from being this kind of the joke always to.
I think that would be a great role for him, considering that he's always kind of been the comic relief, the sidekick. I'd love to see him work himself into a role of incredible significance on the island.
Because it's amazing how much they did that with Sawyer last season.
Yeah.
Talk about one of the best character growth, development.
Yeah. I hated him the first 3 episodes of the series. He was a jerk.
Yeah, he totally was. And you're like, how long can this one-trick pony be on here and be the adversary? And now he's like...
Not my favorite character.
He's as credible as Jack, who's been a little bit whiny lately, So, but gosh, I think it's going to be an amazing season. I'm really excited to see what I hear they're going to do. Is this season's going to be a lot more like season 1, in that it's going to be a lot more character-centric stories. More a Kate story, a Jack story, a Sawyer story. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. And even I heard some of the orders of the stories may be a little bit more like there might be the alternate timeline to the what Kate did story, or to the Walkabout, or these alternative kind of what if scenarios. But somehow I don't know how they're going to play into the history of these characters, how they're going to change. This is going to be the mind screw up that challenges the viewers. I think I thought time travel was a hard concept to grasp. That's nothing compared to alternate realities.
Well, we've invested this many years into the process. I really, really hope it pays off with something better than it was all a dream or something. There's got to be some substance to the end, or I think we're going to be very, very upset with
Well,
the
and the thing is, think about it. I remember one of my main theories at the beginning of season 4 or 5 or whatever was that Jack was going to wake up on the island. You're going to see his eyeball, and it's going to be a big loop. And then we saw that when the Jira flight crash landed in the middle of season 5.
You were right. You were just a little early.
Yeah, I'm ahead of my time. Hey, but then you have this idea. Well, maybe it's just all a dream. And then how does season 6 start out? It's kind of a what if type dream. So I feel like a lot of what we're all saying is kind of happening. So I think they do have something in mind, though, bigger than this. But what it is, I don't know. Is there going to be a big war between good and evil? And if so, what are the sides? Where does Whitmore and Eloise Hawking fit into this?
I'm just going to say that.
We haven't even touched on that. What about Jin's, or is it Sun's father? His corporation seems like that's a player with, Whitmore, and Whitmore has this interest in the Black Rock and that journal, and there's still so much meat that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, we got 2 answers, and we have about 100 more questions left to be answered.
Okay, to wrap this up, I asked Kurt this, and then he ended it with a cliffhanger. What is the one? What do you want answered? What do you want to see resolved? What is the one thing you want to see somehow answered in the end of this season?
I want to know if the island has a will of its own, or all of the things that we have been attributing to the island have been the effects of Jacob or the Man in Black influencing events.
Yeah,
is there an island will?
Because that will even stretched out to Michael off island in New York and brought all these people together or something, And
you guys did the smoke monster heal John Locke to manipulate him to kill him later on,
Yeah. I mean, you think of yeah.
Blows your mind. It blows your mind.
It really does. Yeah. So wow, this is a great discussion actually about Locke and the manipulation and how far that reaches. So I'm glad we did this. And just a little postscript production note for people. I haven't talked with Andy in a very long time. We threw this blog thing together in about 10 minutes. And I'm glad to say we did it, and we've got a great discussion out of this. So thanks everybody for watching. It's going to be a great season. I hope to have more guest stars. I hope to have Andy do more of this. Check out his channel. And thumbs up from Andy. And I think that's all for now. Why don't we probably cut to some lost ending or something? All right.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Talk to you later. Bye.